All right, Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. Bud, it is a 9-3 rendition of the Nolecast. Certainly going to look back at the UF game some, but for some of our more diehard listeners who super enjoy the snap count draft that we do right at the prior to kickoff each year, this will be an episode for you. Going back in time, looking at what went right, what went wrong, who got particularly close on some of our projections, and where we missed big and why. So we'll put a bow on the regular season. I was at the game on Friday, Bud. Thank you so much for handling the instant, even in your healing, various stages of healing that you've gone through over the last 10 days or so. But fantastic to have the gang all back together. And here we go on a hell of a season and looking back at it one more time.
Yes, sir, man. That was just it was fun to go back and do some of the rewatch. And there's so much to be excited right now about this program. Like Mike and his staff had to work their asses off and catch some breaks, and they did both. And like they needed a guy like Jordan Travis to elevate and take that next step. I mean, that's kind of your number one takeaway from this game overall, is just how damn well Jordan Travis played overall. Now, he missed some throws early, maybe some jitters, but his escapability was just insane, right? And that was we can kind of do our prize pick shout out right off the top here if we want to, because I mean, he was our pick for like take Jordan Travis, go over, right? We almost hit our big combo card, by the way. Anthony Richardson under fantasy points was the one that missed. My thoughts on this defense. But anyway, Jordan Travis way over his fantasy points, no doubt, right? Just the escapability, making the plays with his legs, also put a number of throws in quarters 2, 3, and 4 on the money, which were dropped, getting quickly through his first and second read, sometimes going to that third read, moving around in the pocket until he couldn't move around in the pocket anymore, and he escaped out of it a couple times. They didn't need to run him the prior 4 games. And you got basically a month between this game and the bowl game. It was time to unleash the legs, and he did, right? That was special.
He did it on the planned plays, and some of the unplanned improvisations is just amazing. I mean, the one play where he comes out and I guess gets judged to have slid at the half-yard line or whatever. I mean, that is I'm not being hyperbolic. Seeing it live is one of the more impressive feats of athleticism I've ever seen. I mean, it was one of those things that happens in front of you, and you're like screaming and acting like a nut because that's what happens. But you're also like, oh my God, like I'm still having a hard time believing what I just saw in my mind. My mind basically told me at 3 different times that play was over. And it was similar, almost like the only thing I could compare it to is the Hail Mary that Jameis threw against BC at the half, where you're pretty sure he's sacked a couple times and then just pops out, throws a ball. It was nuts, man. And it was one of the more impressive live performances I've seen from a kid who absolutely just was the best player on the field. And it was closer than you and I thought it would be, closer than we projected. I'm just, extrapolating my own personal feelings, but it was never felt to me like the team that had Jordan Travis was going to lose that game on Friday night. And it was incredible to see it play out in front of us. So,
yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like Jordan was making plays even when Florida's defense played well. And AR-15 made a couple nice throws, very nice throws. Like the one throw that he beat Knowles on is actually just, I'm not saying Knowles had good coverage, but I don't think he had horrendous coverage necessarily there. And it was a very nice throw to hit that kid in stride, right? But you're right. I think the way I put it on the instant was, as long as he had time, as long as Jordan had enough time, like on the clock, to lead FSU down for one more drive, you had to feel really good, and that was largely the key, right? It was Jordan. This is, considering the opponent, like that's the best game he's ever played.
100%.
I mean, yeah, like, and maybe by a good bit. So obviously I feel like, pretty decent chance that he returns at this point. I like there's got to be a solid shot of that. I think. Who knows? You never know, and I think we'll wait some kind of announcement there. But preseason, I think I was like, all right, like how many quarterbacks would you take over Jordan Travis? We were probably in that like 15 range, I think. Now, maybe 5.
Yeah.
Like again, I shot a
I
video.
know there's 4, and then probably 2 or 3
Yeah.
kids you could debate on, and that's it.
And
I mean,
who's going to take those 4 NFL teams really high,
right? Yeah.
Um, I shot a video the other day for Cover 3 about Jimbo's offense and what they might look for in an offensive coordinator, and I made sure to emphasize like, hey, you know what? I'm not calling this offense for the NFL. I'm calling this to win college football games. And we may debate like, hey, what round should Jordan Travis go in whenever he decides to go? Jordan Travis is a really good college quarterback, man. I mean, he does a lot of things really, really well. You're going to win a lot of ball games with that guy.
Exceptional talent. We'll wait and see how it plays out as far as decision making on return, and we'll comment when we have more official news, if there is such a thing to be said. But yeah, Jordan, that was just remarkable. And if he does return, you can go into next year with the idea that you've got one of the better quarterbacks in the country. You've got a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. For all of those of you who want to talk about that this year, just wait a second, and perhaps you can legitimately talk about it next. But it will be a player and a entity in the college football world, the likes that you haven't had since probably Dalvin Cook was carrying the ball for you, as far as a known player that the rest of the college football world is aware of, and is even the neutral fans are going to make that somewhat of a appointment viewing, because Jordan Travis has very much announced himself as one of the best college quarterbacks in the country.
And honestly, like Jordan's passing loosened up the run game later for you, I thought. Right? I mean, like early on, Florida did a decent job of run stuffing. And if you kind of go through this game, I mean, you had more run stuff than you normally have in terms of like stuff that stopped for negative or 0 or 1 or 2. You had more of those than normal, and Florida played you physical, and they played you inspired. And I really hadn't seen Florida's defense play like that, except for maybe the Tennessee game. I don't know if you want to count the South Carolina game, because I felt like South Carolina just kind of airmailed that and didn't. I mean, when you lose 48-0, it feels like you're not really, probably not in the right headspace, So, I mean, that was good on them, and good on you for responding. Johnny Wilson, I think, also deserves some credit here. He played poorly to start. Obviously had a couple drops that should have been caught. But he also makes a huge catch for you on one of the most pivotal drives of the ball game, And for him to not lose the confidence, and for Jordan not to lose confidence in him, because like keep in mind the huge game that he had that kind of saved your season, or kept the seat, not saved. Yeah, kind of saved it, I guess. Kept it on the right track. Was that Louisville game when Jordan gets knocked out? But Jordan's not throwing him the ball, right? Johnny had not come up huge in big time games where you needed him, like close games for Jordan, like that. And to make that catch when he did, that was big time. If you get Johnny Wilson back, which, I mean, I don't know where he'd be drafted. I'm not saying he wouldn't be drafted, but I don't think he'd be a high pick based on this season. He certainly exceeded my expectations, but also still has some things he has to work on. I mean, this is going to be a scary offense to watch next year. If you get Jordan back, you get Johnny back, and maybe if you get another guy who had a big time game, depending on what he wants to do. If he wants to go pro, I really can't blame him in Trey Benson, So you got some nice pieces here.
You got some nice pieces when you do project to next year, whether it be Trey Benson, whether it be existing piece on your offense. You've got one of the better offenses in the country as far as what it looks like to be a running back, both because of what Mike and his team do schematically, and the fact that every defense you play next year knows that your quarterback, if he's there, is one of the more dangerous individuals with his legs in the country. So I'll be fascinated to see how that plays out, who returns. But I think that you're going to be pretty good at the running back position regardless, both because of the appeal that you'll have to outside backs, the two that you have on your roster. Certainly Rodney Hill emerged as the season went on, and that's a piece that you can be excited about building around. But I obviously Trey Benson's a very talented player, and you'd love to keep as many kids as you can. But if there's anywhere out there that the money ball is a term that gets thrown around a little bit too much, in my opinion, right now. But you can go find a situation where you can feature a running back, and it's a very mutual beneficial relationship for everybody involved. If it's somebody that's not already on your roster,
Totally. All right, defensively, my biggest disappointment here, and I'll just tell you, like, I looked at my advanced stats numbers and try to factor in opponent strength and when you played teams. This isn't final. I'll do a more deep dive on this, and people have asked for a little more exact numbers. I think FSU's defense is like 54th or 55th for me, and the offense is solidly in the top 10. That's definitely disagreeing with Bill Connolly, who is a good friend of mine. Like, I DM with him every single day. But my biggest disappointment with this defense in this game was we talked, like, you nailed it in the preview, right? Florida is probably the best offensive line you faced. That came true. Richardson, if you get the good one, which you kind of got a mixed version, I would say, is pretty good. You kind of got lucky that he got hurt early in this game, because I do think it impacted his ability to run and then also move around in the pocket and throw on the run some. 9 of 27, but for 198, obviously is an interesting stat line. But the stat line that bothers me a lot, right? We talked about this. Not only was Florida down its starting receivers, it was also down its number twos. So they were having to run out freshmen and true freshmen out there. They had 9 targets to Ricky Pearsall, 5 catches for 148. They had 5 targets to tight end Jonathan Odom and 3 targets to Dante Zanders. You did not force Florida to try to use the other receivers in their passing game, right? Like, to me, that was going to be one of the keys. You got out schemed. Florida easily got their guy, the only guy clearly that they trusted throwing the ball to, on Kevin Knowles or other guys whose matchup they liked. Florida, with the chalk, beat Adam Fuller repeatedly in this ball game. And that's not acceptable if you want to get to the next level, because every decent offense you've played has gone up and down the field on you. Even when you've had a lead and you should be able to protect, like when you played LSU, right? I mean, you're up 2 scores. That's not a good throwing team. They haven't even played together as an offense before. It's their first game ever. Boom, boom. 2 long drives on you, no problem, right? Like, I don't like this pass defense. Sorry. I think this offense carries this defense to 9 wins, and it's an awesome offense. And this defense ain't nothing special to it, man. And there's a chance they lose some really special guys off this defense. And I want to see this defense take a step forward to truly play off the offense next year to be a more complete team. That number, though, like 9 targets to Pearsall and none to other receivers. I mean, that's like, what does Belichick do? Takes away your best player. And you allowed him to run for 262. I mean, that's 262 and 148. Like, I mean, your 410 or their 460 yards were the 2 things that you really had to try to take away: the run game and Pearsall. How many times did they make him throw screens to the backup receivers? Not many, right?
Not many.
That to me, that's unacceptable.
Yeah. You got outflanked.
They don't look well coached.
As I think we've made our opinions known as to what needs to go on there. But we'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what decisions are made, and it's more to it than.
Well, I mean, it's a tough decision for Mike, right? Because you just had the best season you've had in probably 6 years, but you also have a lot of equity. I mean, if Mike goes to the boosters and says, "Hey, I want to upgrade this staff," right? what's a better time to do it than after you just gave everybody the best season? Like, they're like, wait, Mike, really? Okay, man. Like, we trust you. If you think we need to get better coaching in here on the defensive side of the football, even after going 9-3, we believe you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think that'll be a problem. I think that, I certainly can't speak to anything, but I believe that Mike will have the support that he needs right now to do whatever it is he deems fit. It's that this question isn't about resources or support. It's about whether or not Mike makes that decision, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
a couple things here. All-ACC team, dude.
yay. Yeah, absolutely. Quite
Got
a
some
change to see as
recognition.
many
Yeah.
names listed on this. It's been a while, but it was great to see.
So quickly here, Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, Johnny Wilson, Robert Scott all made second team. Dimitri Emanuel made third team. I should probably read off the first team first. So Jamie Robinson was named first team safety, which is great. Dylan Gibbons got first team guard honor. So congrats to him. He got an honorable mention last year. And Jared Verse actually got the most votes among all defensive players in his first season of the league, which kind of shocks me, but he did have a nice year. Certainly. Like, that's
When he was good, he was like a pot boiling over good.
Yeah.
And had some outrageously good tape out there. But it does surprise me that vote count. But then again, there was not a there was not a super dominant force out there in the ACC as far as just a go ahead clear for conference that historically has produced a lot of really good defensive linemen and stuff like that. There's not as much of that in the league right now. So
agreed.
yeah, good for Jared.
I think it's also notable, dude, that like the guys they had on the third, like not third team, there's no third team, but honorable mention, right? So Maurice Smith, Trayshawn Ward, Fabian Lovett, Cooper Bethune, Bernardo Green, Pittman as a punt returner. It just feels like you have more competitive depth in this roster now. It's just better. And like, that's a credit to what Mike's done. It's a credit to what Derek Ray and his whole staff have done of getting more competitive depth into this program. Are all those guys going to play in the league? No, most of them probably won't, in fact. But they are much better football players than what you've had probably since I don't know, like the top end of this roster is not what you had in 2016. But like your 30th best player is more competitive, I think, than what you had in 16 and 17.
Yeah, well, certainly in 16, I would agree. 17, kind of hard to judge anything in retrospect
And the buy-in
on that
obviously,
one. But yeah,
like the like people actually wanted to be here and compete, which is quality.
It helps late in the season, that's for sure. I mean, with the way the college football is going in, September's almost, or excuse me, November's almost like buy-in month. Like, does your team still care? Do they? Are you there? Are you aligned? Do you still have the locker room? If so, you're going to be able to win a lot of college football games in the back half of the season with kind of where college football is right now. So, and credit to Mike for the culture that he's built and everything else. And Florida State's in a great place. It'll be fascinating to see how much they can build on it and what it looks like ultimately, as far as how you do well, or how well you do in retaining this roster. But all the pieces are there, in my opinion, next year for a very, very special season. And if you can beat LSU, then I think you can start to dream big and dream about things that this program hadn't dreamt about since 2016, as far as potentially, playing in a college football playoff game or a New Year's Six bowl game. So that's the ultimate goal, and it'll be fascinating to see how everything that we talk about from here to the LSU game kind of plays up to that. So,
bowl game wise, seeing a lot of Cheez-It Bowl here in Orlando. So, I'd like to see
you could double dip. Speaking of the Cheez-It Bowl, you could get this year's bowl game, next year's opener. Just the world truly is revolving around Mr. Elliott there.
I do feel like we will have a really good bar crawl set up next year. But between all of our sponsors who are in the state of Florida, who will be giving special shout outs later in the show with our awards for the Snap Count and Draft. So those are coming if you guys are listening for the ad reads, of course. Didn't really have a prize picks one, so just knocked that out with Jordan since we talked J-Trav early in the show. Um, Cheez It Bowl. That's a Big 12 opponent, most likely. Texas Tech, Oklahoma. If you like points,
Yeah.
you would get some points because I
Yeah.
think Texas Tech would score in the 40s on you potentially, just given how fast they play. They're not like, don't get me wrong, like they're not crazy efficient, but they do play really, really fast. I don't know if you followed Western Kentucky last year, but they took they got the OC from Western from last year, so they play very, very fast and wide open, and I think you would score like 70 on them. So, or maybe 60, just depending, because you do run the ball and that drains the clock a little bit. Could be a good matchup. I know a lot of people want to get an SEC team in the Gator Bowl. I guess that's possible, but you got to figure out what's going to happen with Notre Dame. Tonight in the other college football playoff ratings, you were 13, so feel pretty good about that. It's better to me than the AP poll. I do think you should be ahead of LSU. I mean, LSU just lost to
Yeah.
a non-bowl team, for crying out loud, and you
In
also
a
have the head victory. Like you
in
did
a
beat them.
non-competitive fashion. Yeah.
Yeah, right. They were not competitive against A&M. That was, who boy, tough look for Brian Kelly, a guy who, by the way, almost never loses as a favorite and almost never wins as a dog.
Hmm.
Kelly is just routinely reliable for winning the games he should win, and pretty reliable for losing the games he should lose. And so that was out of character for him to drop a game as a 10-point favorite.
Interesting. Anything else we need to touch on, or can we move to one of my favorite episodes of the year?
I guess we need to do the McCall thing.
Oh, okay, that's right. So, any more clarity on this? So there's been a Sam McCall, according to Knowles 247, as of about an hour before we started recording here on the evening of the 29th. So let's say 8:30, somewhere in that area, they had a report that Sam McCall is no longer on the roster. But I know that you had mentioned that maybe he had put something on social media suggesting that that he was joking. I don't
Yeah,
know.
now he has an Instagram post out that
Okay.
definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So the ambiguity's been removed. It looks like Sam McCall is leaving the program.
It's actually kind of an interesting graphic. He did not post the same one, by the way, so he had a new graphic made for this. I am terrible with making graphics, by the way, but this one looks like it's on crinkled up notebook paper, but it's clearly typewritten.
Hmm.
Dear FSU family, first I would like to thank Florida State University for giving me the opportunity to be part of their program and for supporting me on my journey this past year. With that being said, I would like to announce that I will not be a Florida State Seminole next season and will be entering the transfer portal. All right, so a couple takes on this from me. The first take is when you have a player who's a highly rated recruit leave, you think, okay, is there something wrong with the program culturally right now? You know, is this a thing where you're getting outspent in NIL? Is there something else going on here? Based on conversations I've had, no, right? Like, I do not expect FSU to lose many, if any, kids off their current roster who they want to keep due to NIL. Okay. I think donors are going to be pretty fired up to keep the kids that you like on this roster. So I do not believe this is purely NIL based, or maybe even mostly NIL based. Now, the thing is, FSU secondary this year was not good, and McCall was not close to getting on the field. He played some corner. They wanted to try him at safety. I don't know if he actually wanted to play safety. They clearly needed some help there. They had to end up playing, obviously Sydney who helped, kind of give up that big run there in the fourth quarter. My thing is, man, when I'm at a game and I look at the sidelines, I see a team that's super engaged, and I see a guy in McCall who's like the lone dude sitting by himself, just not into it. And I think Mike has a great culture thing going on right now. I'm not going to backtrack on what I just said, which is like I don't think the secondary is well coached, but I don't think that's the reason McCall's leaving. I think he's probably going to end up at Florida or Miami if I had to guess at this point, and it makes me question, like, how much was he ever bought in after Travis Hunter left? I mean, I think Travis Hunter is the reason McCall signed at Florida State, or at least one of them.
Yeah. I think it's the reason that he signed with Florida State. I personally don't think it has a ton to do with how we got here. I think it's more position based, honestly, and the fact that just never really caught the world on fire. I think that part of the reason he was returning kicks was because you were trying to find a place for a kid, and
Yeah.
that wasn't particularly successful. Um, a kid who wants to play DB and whose body and skill set is kind of that of a safety. If at least if he wants to play at a level where large checks get written every Sunday. So we'll just have to see. I'm a little bit surprised by what you say as far as you know. You and I've talked before, so I'm not surprised as far as that that you mentioned it. But I am surprised that that is a kid that would want to go to Florida, Miami after maybe not having as clear a path to playing as he would want. But if that's where he goes, absolutely. As you referenced, if you're at the Louisiana game, it was fairly clear that this kid was probably leaving. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, you had 85 guys or 114 guys on the sideline engaged, and you had one kid sitting on the benches and multiple coaches coming over and trying to what appeared to be either get him more involved or see whatever the problem was. This is a destination that we've been headed to for about 2 or 3 weeks now, and it sounds like we finally got there tonight.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it was fairly obvious after Louisiana. I knew Chad had texted us like, "What do you think's going on the call?" I was like, "I don't think he's here next year. I'd be surprised." You know, in this era, by the way, like if you look at the Instagram post, you'll see a lot of teammates like encouraging him like to go be great elsewhere. That's just how kids act on social media, by the way. Like they're not going to be on his Instagram saying like, "Hey, dude, like we
Right,
really wish you would have bought in,
right,
and played hard. Like we got something special going here." They're not, and they're especially not going to say that publicly. It's all going to be like, "Go get yours, go be great," ball out, man, like that kind of stuff,
yeah.
right? They're bro hugging in the middle of the game. That's just kind of how sports are right now, you know. So anyway, but it does suck to lose a very athletically talent. Like he's not a good player yet. If somebody develops him, he will be a good player, right?
Mhm.
But he has to buy into it, obviously. But like it does suck to lose that level of clay off your roster that you could have molded. I'm not just going
Yep.
to sit here and say like, "Oh, big whoop." No, like you haven't signed that many 5 stars out of the high school level, especially not a defensive back, and you need defensive back help. So I'm not going to pretend that losing the opportunity to develop McCall doesn't suck. But McCall also would have had to bought in at some point, right? And I like you saw AZ Thomas get on the field. I think there's a difference in terms of practice habits there
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
buy-in, maturity, learning the playbook, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. To transition to where we're going, Sam McCall got 70 snaps this year. I would guess that 35 to 40 of those were on special teams, maybe
Yeah.
more. Um, Looking at a guy who garnered 30 to 35 defensive snaps this year, and they're too talented to do that. So hopefully it works out for him.
I mean,
Like you
I can tell you
said,
exactly how many coverage snaps he played.
okay, yeah,
Um,
we'll get there real quickly. And after this, we'll jump fully into our
23.
snap count. 23. Okay,
Yeah.
so I was probably
Less than
underselling.
half were defensive snaps, basically.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
absolutely. So 47 of his 70 snaps, it would appear as though we're special teams based. So that's where you were with a kid, and hopefully he lands on his feet and good things are in his future.
yeah, 100%. Um, let's do snap count.
Let's do snap
Snap
count.
count.
Absolutely. This is the Tarpon Sellers Snap Count Draft. TarponSellers.com is our wonderful partner. You can use coupon code Nolecast there, 20% off at checkout. Fantastic selection of whites and reds. I believe it's actually their Cambroa, one of their rosés that's been so highly rated. I'll talk to people who actually know wine and know how to pronounce it before I stumble through describing which of their wines was recently voted one of the top 50 wines of the world. But have faith that if you go to the website, tarponsellers.com, You're getting exceptional stuff. Know that it's put together and fully behind the brainchild of two rabid Florida State fans and guys that have been instrumental in allowing us to grow the Nolecast. So big
We
thanks to them, and we're always proud of our friends out in Napa Valley.
we should do an episode where we just sip rosé
We should
the whole
absolutely.
time. Like that would be
Yeah,
tremendous.
in Napa Valley, California. We don't just need to limit ourselves here. We need to
Yeah,
head
yeah.
out
I
there
think
and
the wives
applaud.
are gonna want to
Yeah,
make sure we do an on
yeah.
location
This is
shoot, which we
this
might
is
have to
Maggie's
do.
brainchild for about 2.5 years now, and
Yeah,
we'll make it come to fruition, man.
I
So
mean, like, yeah, they're my brainchild. Maggie and Christina are gonna drink the wine, and we're gonna like go back to the hotel room, do an episode, and then come back. Yeah, and they'll be like, "Oh, we got a cheese
yeah,
board." Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So
all right. So basically, the rules on the snap count draft. We've done this for 4 years now. The loser has to pay for charity, right? Last year, Ingram donated. What'd you donate to? It was the women's shelter in Immokalee, right? I believe.
no, it was the
Or that was the one I
foundation.
sent to the guy on Twitter when he lost that Twitter bet to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is maybe where you supported 2 years ago.
Okay.
But this was the foundation for the oh man, I'm blanking here. it
The one in
was your
Virginia?
it was a friend of yours, the Wonka Foundation. Yeah,
Oh, oh, Johnny Worka.
Worka.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we did a whole episode. My buddy Johnny Worka, combat diver, who was killed. So yeah, I mean that was obviously supporting that is awesome. I didn't realize we tied snap count draft to that last year. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Okay.
Yeah. So
Man, we've been doing this for so long, it's mm.
it is.
So it's an auction style draft. You guys ever done like a fantasy football or fantasy baseball style auction? We each get a certain like number of snaps we get to bid, and when the bidding stops, you win the player on your like fantasy team, basically. And we try to draft the most snaps. Like it's essentially just bidding on playing time. And it's kind of fun to go back and forth. You guys can go back and watch the episode. I'll actually link the episode in the show notes. I'm going to write it down here on my in-show notepad to remind myself. Link draft. But we have some awards here. First overall award goes to Ingram Smith, who he got me this year, guys. We are now tied 2-2 all time. Ingram, your team had 9,705 snaps, and my team had 8,785. So you got me by almost 1,000.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Mm.
That's great. That's great. That's
painful.
I thought
you
I was
needed some revenge.
Yeah, I thought I was doing well here, but I always, you remember your wins and forget your losses. And I honestly forgot that I had taken Bless Harris and paid good snap count money for him, and then wasn't sure whether or not I was going to be ultimate winner when I took a negative 562 on that particular cell in the Excel sheet, but. Yeah, man, that's awesome, and it's great that we've done this 4 years, and we're now 2-2. So we'll go for the decider next year in the 5-game series that is the snap count draft. But no, this is fun, man, and it's great to be able to look back and see where we were coming out of camp as far as where kids were, where we thought they would be, and then look back on it and see. Oh, well, I've got a negative 562 in this cell. Well, that's because he was injured. That's obvious. But, okay, where's this negative 191 come from? That kid wasn't injured. It just didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't play out in the manner that we thought it would as far as him being involved. So this is fun for you and I to do and look back on, but it's also, pretty instructive as to who emerged, whether or not particular position groups were used in a manner that we thought we were. We'll talk about that, particularly when we talk about the tight ends. But I think it's an instructive look back and get a feel for where some of these pieces are. And also it's a great, we want to do it right now before we head into the transfer portal / draft season, so that if you hear a guy is coming back or if you hear a guy is leaving, you can immediately be like, okay, well, that's 490 snaps that Florida State's going to have to replace or whatever else. So there is method to our madness, and very much look forward to this conversation.
All right, so we're going to start with, and we do these in award style. Let's start with the Andre Wadsworth Award. That is the best value
For
brought
those
a
of you
couple of these
that
back
don't
from
know,
last year.
Andre Wadsworth was a walk-on. Andre Wadsworth would go on to be a two-time All-American and the 4th overall pick in the draft. At the time, it was the highest drafted player that Florida State had. And maybe
Yes.
Dion, because it was Dion 3rd or 4th. Was Dion also 4th? Well, I don't want to derail us here, but Andre Wadsworth, you got him as a walk-on. You turned him into a top 5 pick in the draft. And his senior year, he was one of the most dominant defensive, a guy who came in at defensive tackle, finished at defensive end, and was a incredible defensive end during the stretch of time that Florida State had nothing but incredible defensive ends.
He was pick 5, by the way.
Okay, so the Falcons, good for them.
But
so yeah, Wadsworth
interesting.
was.
Do you know who took Wadsworth his honor of being the highest walk-on in the 7th round, like the common draft era?
Who was that?
I think it's Baker Mayfield, who was kind of questionably a walk-on because I think he had a walk-on at Oklahoma. Wadsworth was like a legitimate walk-on.
Mm-hmm.
So, at least as far as I understand it. But
yeah,
so.
he was. He came to Florida State as like a 238-pound nose tackle, and he ended up playing, I think, as a redshirt freshman. So he was.
Guys don't move from nose tackle to play kind of like some 5 tech and DN stuff very often either.
And if you go look at him, he's not a Mario Edwards Jr. type defensive end. He was very much in line with the Peter Boulware, Jamal Reynolds, that generation of defensive ends that were exceptionally athletic and could get after the quarterback. So if you had us talking about Andre Wadsworth for 6 minutes on tonight's Nolecast, congratulations. You've won that side bet.
All right. So who is your Andre Wadsworth winner?
So the best value for me was Maurice Smith. We were concerned a little bit at the time as Maurice Smith was injured. This was very much kind of a calculated risk that I wanted to put a number up there that was reflective of if it hit, I would hit pretty good. But if he zeroed, I wouldn't be on the hook for 629 snaps and a kid that only got to play 50 or something like that. So I was able to get Maurice Smith for 380 snaps. He ended up playing 731. That's a great one. 2 other ones that come to mind, and this is the tight end position that I just referenced. Was fortunate to get Marquise Douglas at 89. Big Biscuit played 340 snaps, man. That's awesome. And Preston Daniel was somebody that I got at 29. And a lot of these are special team snaps. Preston's on the field a lot. But Preston Daniel ended up getting in 218 snaps. So I got a plus 251 and a plus 189 out of my, tight end / H-back exposure.
That does not suck. And just to refresh everybody's memory, I mean, Maurice Smith playing 731 snaps is nuts. At the time, he had off-season surgery. He also got hurt. He was banged up during camp. We did the draft, I think the Monday before the first game. And I think at the time we knew Lyles was out, right? Because Lyles went undrafted. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was public, but we definitely knew that Lyles was done.
Yeah.
Like you and I had known. I don't know if it was announced at the time. Maybe it was. I assume it was. Otherwise, we would have had to explain on the show why we weren't drafting somebody that everybody was projecting to be, the starting center. But Maurice, with his injury history and his size to play everyone, that is tremendously good, man. That's wild.
Yeah. So there's also 2 other ones that I, not to just ramble on, but 2 other at a particular position group. Defensive end. I got very fortunate to get Leonard Warner for 35 snaps. He ended up taking 268. So that was a plus 233. Got Patrick Payton for 85, and he played 329. So I lucked out at tight end and defensive end when it came to some of these numbers.
You did. And so last year, if you guys recall, I ended up with 60 players, and I think Ingram had 35 or something like that. Maybe it was a pretty big split. This year it was actually flip-flopped. I only had 32 guys, and Ingram had 45. I mean, it was almost a full role reversal. You were much more budget conscious this year. I kind of went stars and scrubs, and I still got a couple values here. So for my Andre Wadsworth, I mean, obviously the one that really kept me in this ball game was Jazz Turentine. I
Yeah.
mean, I bid like when the bidding stopped, I had him for 158 snaps, and I got him on Team Bud. He took 628 snaps.
That was a direct. He took 628. Okay.
Yeah,
So I drafted Bless Harris for 619 snaps. So basically, uh, I paid for Bless and didn't get him, and
I paid for Jazz.
you played for Jazz and got Bless. So well done, sir.
I mean, like my whole thought process on Jazz was nobody will stay healthy all the time. He'll have to play a couple games. There's a reason that they use that last scholarship on him. If you have some blowouts, he'll get to play there as well. Okay, whatever. Like maybe there's some upside there at 150. But the fact that he played 628 is just kind of nuts. That's a little 470 snap surplus for me. A guy that I was not super high on coming in the year because just from the people that I had talked to, they expected the dudes who they thought were more talented to emerge eventually at corner. And that didn't happen. But what did happen is Renardo Green became your most consistent corner on the year. I don't know if he's like a draft prospect, but he's a solid ACC corner,
Mhm.
and so I got him for 320. He played 526. So that was certainly helpful for me quite a bit. And then another one of my favorite players, Cam McDonald. I bid 275, right? And he was fine. I think if you got a guy in your program for that many years, you're expecting a little bit better production, but it's also kind of on you not to like. It's also your job as coaches to go out and recruit over a guy, and couldn't do it, right? Like he kept winning the job. So McDonald 275. And remember, he had a weird camp, right? Like didn't play a lot in camp, and then came back and was in the starting lineup. He played 479, so that was another 200 surplus for me there. And yeah, those are my kind of three nominees. I think you're going to sweep a lot of these awards. I think Jazz going, 470 over bidding price might be the guy who needs to take this home though. That's my vote.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a damn good snag there. Absolutely. So, and sometimes you just got to give yourself enough coverage as you did to where, um, if the need's there, you don't. It's tough to get somebody that takes 600 snaps or 140 or 150, whatever it was. But that was a guy who was the reason the coaches took him with the last scholarship is exactly what transpired from a draft count perspective as to why you drafted him the way you did, and a guy that the coaches probably would have in their minds would have had playing 150 to 200 snaps ended up taking 620 or whatever it was that you ultimately got out of him. So well done.
All right, let's go to the next one here. This is the Lost in the Sauce Tarpon Sellers Award for the worst bid. Now this is the non-injury version, right? We'll do the we'll or no, this is the injury one, I think, right? Because we also have the coming up the Fred Rouse Award, which is the biggest miss non-injury version. You want to count this one with injury?
We could just say that this is either, well, sure, yeah. We'd probably have to massage the wording on it a little bit with our good friends at Tarpon Sellers.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we've talked about it. Obviously, it is Bless. I took a negative 562. That's the worst number on the board across the board. The second one here, and equally tough when you consider the circumstance that the injury occurred and how many snaps this guy would have otherwise had, is Fabian Lovett. I took Fabian Lovett with 629 snaps. He ended up playing 210. Now we know the story there, and we know why that number was what it was. But I believe Fabian and Bless Harris are the two biggest misses on this board, and they're both injury related. You're right, but that for me was the worst bid. Now, if you're just looking at if I had a guy and then it just didn't play out, I kind of drafted Thomas Schrader in the way that you drafted Jazz. I took Thomas Schrader with 179 snaps, which is reflective of a guy that neither of us thought was going to start. But if the opportunity comes, he'd be a plug-in. Thomas Schrader only got 12 snaps. So that is a place where I was probably, trying to position for potential value, and it just never happened for a kid. Trayshawn Ward, I drafted 429 snaps, only played 204. Some of that's a little bit injury related. some of that's that none of these running backs that we drafted really got as high up in the snap counts that maybe we were projected coming out of camp.
I also thought FSU would play more two back this year than they ended up doing, in part because their receivers ended up meshing with Jordan pretty well, you know, and like that took away some of the opportunity to have a lot of running back snaps, just above and beyond just your obviously you're going to have one back on the field, pretty much all the time. Okay, so for me, another one here, Amarion Cooper, negative 312. I bid 620. Some of that was injury, obviously. Some of that I think was other things going on. Dennis Briggs was one who's kind of in that Thomas Schrader category for me, except I did think he would start, and ultimately he just like it's kind of injury. It's also just a miss by me, right? Like I thought that he was going to return as a starter. He just never fully bounced back from that injury. It sucks for the guy. Like I love Dennis Briggs, and
Yeah.
just not the same player that he was pre-injury, and maybe you hope he can bounce back in whatever he ends up doing. I also, by the way, like one of my biggest misses speaks to your point, I think, Ingram, on just how you did have more receivers playing this year. Trey Benson, I bid 550 on. Like during the portal season, I was like, all right, I'm skeptical on this take. The staff has got to know something here, like whether it's a verified time or they've had a private workout or they've seen like a private workout video that we've not seen because the guy tore his knee up that bad, right? And then we kind of got tipped that like, hey, he like his numbers are ridiculous, and so I bid 550 on Trey Benson. I was like the biggest Trey Benson fan about a week before the season, and he gets 313, which also speaks to just how well everybody balanced it out. But it also took Trey a little bit of time to fully acclimate it into the offense. I mean, he did not look. I think you said this pre-show, so we should probably say it on the show, right? Like you made the point, like he didn't look fully comfortable against LSU. If he comes back for another season, I mean, he's going to threaten. I don't know if he's going to hit the Dalvin number that Dalvin put up that one year, which was just crazy. But if Benson comes back, he has a chance to make a serious run at, like a top, probably a top 6 or 7 all-time rushing season. Trying to think like what. Going to pull up nolefan.org. But if you guys have never checked out this site, nolefan.org is kind of cool. It has like all of the FSU archive stuff of all time. Kind of nice. So,
are you the proprietor of it or something like that by chance?
No, have you never seen this? It looks
kidding.
like something off Geosites, but let me see. Hall of Fame? No, I'm trying to find the link here. It's not really coming up. I should probably learn how to like navigate the site a little bit better. But football, the links. Here we go. All right, we'll do that on a separate episode, I guess.
Okay. Good enough.
All right. The Pay What You Get For award. Or no, I'm sorry. We need to do the Legendary Home Loans Cornering the Market on Positional Dominance award. So this is the position that you did the best job of drafting. Brought to you by our friends at the Legendary Team. Chad and Shannon, 844 FSU Loan, do a tremendous job sponsoring the show, getting you the best possible rate and the best possible customer experience for your home loan. I've used them twice. Like I feel like half of our audience has used them. That's not true, but like more than 400 of y'all have. And I mean, just we always hear good things. So 844 FSU Loan is the number of the call. Support the show, support loyal Noles, and let's go ahead and get into the Corner Your Market Positional Dominance Award brought to you by the Legendary Team. So what do we have here?
Tight end and defensive end, I would say I did particularly well on, and did fairly well in the secondary as well. I mean, to get a plus 81 out of Jamie, plus 81 is not a big deal, but plus 81 when you draft a kid at 629 snaps is pretty remarkable. And credit to Jamie. I mean, Jamie Robinson 710 snaps on the year, so that gave me a plus 81. Kevin Knowles drafted at 241. He ended up playing 432 snaps, which is significant. The defensive ends that I talked about earlier, Malcolm Ray was also something good for me on the interior of the defensive line. But I'll say the tight end group is really the tight end and defensive end are probably the two of the biggest drivers as to why I won by 900 snaps or whatever it is. So,
But value wise, I kind of feel like I hit it big at the foreclosure market, right? I mean, on my secondary. So I had Renardo Green, who was helpful. I had Akeem Dent, and I mean, I paid 630. He had 546. So uh, if you pay 630 and a guy gets you 546, you're not feeling that bad. I mean, that's kind of you kind of got to pay up for the guys that you know are going to be starters. Greedy Vance, Jerry Jones, McClellan, Brendan Gant, and Sidney Williams all on my team. Sidney Williams obviously getting hurt me a little bit, and I also had Amarion Cooper. So I went hard in the secondary, and I mean I bought almost everybody I thought who might play in the secondary except for Jamie, and lo and behold, Jamie plays like every snap that the team had this year. So that was harmful, obviously. Defensive line wise, I had like the negative of this award. So I had Josh Farmer, who was like my lone positive on the defensive line. Jared Verse was a negative 140 for me. I thought he would be a 500 snap guy. He obviously got dinged up. Robert Cooper also got a little bit dinged, played 365. Dennis Briggs, as I said, thought he would eventually start, coming back from the injury, did not. Byron Turner got hurt as well, only played 42 snaps. So D-line really kind of crushed me. I'm like probably like a negative 400 on my D-line bids, So got to improve there next year. Offensive line, I feel like I did pretty okay. Darius Washington got hurt, but Armella, I wasn't that far off on. Jazz helped quite a bit. Not bad.
Yeah. All right. What is our next positional group that we're going to look at here? Pay for
that
what
is
you get
the
award.
pay what you get for award.
Okay.
Should we ascribe this to congruity?
We'll call this the congruity closest to the pin award.
Okay. I like this.
That's where we are.
Accuracy matters.
I had a couple of really good ones. Let's just put the minimum on 100 snaps here. So, like, let's not say, oh, I drafted him at 9 and he snapped for 13. Look at how great, congratulations, dog. So, I'll point out 3 here that I'm particularly proud of. Robert Scott, I drafted at 629. He played 614 for that large of a pick.
Look at that.
That's fairly close.
Yeah.
AZ Thomas, I drafted at 261. He played 254. So very close there. But here's the one, and this is going to be a tough one to beat. Johnny Wilson, 489 snaps on the draft, 490 snaps played. So got damn near hole in one that one.
Man, that is there's no doubt about that. Okay, so for me, I'm not going to beat you on this. Jordan Travis, I paid 625. He played 715.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely the bid I'm most happy about because, I mean, there's some games you could have missed that you could have still won, but like I'm very happy that he played in the games he did play in and played extremely well because the guy is a really good college quarterback. Kalen DeLoach for me was a miss, but a very, very narrow one. I mean, I bid 580 and he took home 541. Totally cool with that. Those are probably my two closest to the pin nominations. But I mean, Johnny Wilson is winning this award, dude. You can't be that damn close. That's crazy.
Yeah, that one was that one turned out right. So that is fantastic. And thank you to our friends at Congruity. Matt Lewis, fantastic guys. I'm fond of saying, pretty sure that there's another entity that's about to pair with Matt Lewis moving forward. So we'll look forward to that and bringing you guys knowledge of that when that's official. I probably need to call and talk to Matt about that before I start rambling about it on the podcast. But yeah, so we are ever so fortunate to work with Matt. All I can tell you is that every chance I get to work with Matt Lewis, I do. And that's as high of a recommendation as I can give him. Congruityhr.com is the website. If you want to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to put you in touch with Matt and can tell you from many personal experiences that you are in nothing but the most competent and capable of hands.
All right, who is the guy next year who will have the biggest jump in terms of bid price this year to bid price next year?
Great one. Great one.
And we did not think about this ahead of time, so I really don't like.
Fi
I'm going to be scanning my list as well as yours, I guess.
Firing off the hip, I'm gonna say Pat Payton. That's what immediately comes to mind for me. Yeah, that's
That's
gonna
a
be the
pretty good
biggest
one,
one.
yeah, because his
You could,
number is going to start with a 6.
yeah, and Maurice Smith is gonna go from 380 to 600, or we'll always be a little bit concerned with, or not concerned. Just Mo has always dealt with injuries, so maybe it's not 6, maybe it's 550, but still, Maurice Smith is going to be drafted as though a starter that you can be fairly confident getting starter snaps next year.
I think that's totally fair. A couple from my squad that just taking a look at. I I got to feel like Byron Turner, who went for 55 this year, will have if Jared Verse doesn't come back, and I mean he hasn't announced he's going pro yet, so I like as a Knoll, I can hope, right? Uh, Julian Armella, who went for 155 this year, the guy works hard, looks like he's in good shape. You got to think that he has a decent chance to start coming up. So I would say Armella is a pretty good nomination there. Um, Again, depending on what happens with Benson, I mean, Toafili went for 220 this year. If Benson leaves, you got to think Toafili is going to start with like a 5. I would guess. Those are probably the ones that I would say are the biggest jumps off my squad.
Yeah, Kevin Knowles. I mean, depending on how this plays out, also Shaheem Brown. Depending on what
Oh
happens at
yeah,
safety, I drafted Shaheem at 205 snaps this year. Great return at 373 plus 168. But that's a guy that's probably has a 5 next to his name, if not a high 4 next year. So one other that I'll point out.
I think so too. Bernardo Green, I feel like, is probably penciled in as a starter next year.
Hmm. Yeah,
So I mean,
great.
300 to 550, 600,
550.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think if you're fairly confident a guy's going to start, I think 550 is probably the beginning bid on somebody, at least
Yeah.
at a traditional defensive starter. Now, if it's
It gives you some upside, right?
yeah, it
As well.
does.
Like if you bid 700, you're basically like, I
You
don't
better
usually
hope you
bid
got
7.
Jamie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And like I feel like sometimes you bid 700 because you want to keep the other guy from getting the player,
Hmm. For sure.
because it's just like it's so obvious that like the drop off to the next guy if he stays healthy is just is pretty it's pretty severe. Um cool, man. What else we got here? Do you remember anybody that you felt like it was a particularly kind of fierce bidding war and you wish you would have gone a dollar higher?
No, I remember somebody that I'm very proud to make you have driven you up as high as I was, and that was Trey Benson. I remember when we were doing it, like I'm like, Bud's not getting him for 290 picks or whatever.
Yeah,
I didn't,
yeah.
I didn't think I was ever going to get him, but I was happy that we got into the
550.
fives. Yeah. Uh, so
I like the transfers, man.
yeah, yeah.
And
So can we like PDF this and make it available on social or something like this? This is a cool looking chart that Bud is particularly gifted at
yeah, I
making
can.
charts like this. And we'll put it out there just so that you guys can take a look at it in your own time. And it's color coordinated, so you can see where the hits and misses are. And like I said, it'll be a great little guide to the next couple of weeks when you're looking at kids declaring for draft, returning from school, choosing to enter the portal, etc., and get a good idea as to how many snaps they took last year and how many snaps they would have taken had they. You can look at some of the starters at each position and get a feel for how many they would have been otherwise. So
I love that. Yeah. Let's do that. I'll take some screenshots and we'll put this out on the Nolecast Twitter. Or
okay.
maybe the Nolecast Instagram. I don't think we've used the Nolecast Instagram for
We need to do that more, and that's
yeah.
very much my shortfall. I mean, I
The
don't. Yeah, I'm not an
the
Instagram
annual
person.
Nolecast Instagram
Yeah,
post.
exactly. You'll get a one Instagram post from me at 8:30 in the morning at Bucky's as I'm driving to Tallahassee or something. You get that's about my once a year contribution.
So, I mean, like, I don't want to duplicate content because I did make a great prime rib again for Thanksgiving. So,
Oh, did you?
like
So did I. That's
that.
exactly what I did. Yeah, it was
Oh,
incredible.
dude, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disparage turkey. I'm just saying that I do feel that prime rib is better. And like, I'm a grown man, and if I wanted to eat turkey, if I liked it that much, I would eat it more often,
Yeah.
and I don't.
Right.
Right? Like,
And the great sales point for turkey is, oh, it makes great sandwiches the next day. Not to be an elitist, but trust me, so does prime rib.
yeah,
Like steak sandwiches work as well. So I'll make do. Absolutely.
yeah. Our last Instagram post, we should like hire a social
We
media manager for our Instagram.
we'll do this, particularly with the demands that both of us have on our times. We can do that and probably much better serve our audience as opposed to two guys in their 30s who post biannually or whatever
You,
it is.
you don't think February 23rd is an acceptable last date of post for Instagram?
Well, it's a work in progress, y'all. It's a work in
Dude, I
progress.
like the seventh most recent post is clearly my old house.
Okay.
Like
I was gonna say from the
the grill
spring game
smoking
that we went
wings.
to in 2017 or whatever. But yeah,
Uh, that
yeah.
the Yeah, because you had those. We also probably need to make new polos.
I've got that.
Okay.
I'm actually actively working on that
I
right
mean,
now.
looking at this, we have this
The
polo was created. I received it in the mail and put a post up about it. It's the first ever Nolecast Instagram post on August 31st, 2018.
Okay. Yes.
So
All right.
I was worried about this, by the way, when the whole Elon
Mhm.
Twitter thing. I was like, damn, we got a nice following on Twitter. I mean, like 15K. You guys should follow us on Instagram though, because like, A, maybe we'll do some more stuff on Instagram coming up. I said maybe. B, what if Twitter goes down and you need to like keep in
Yeah.
contact with us?
We'll get more stuff on this. We are gonna hire somebody to handle some social and to make smaller clips available in different platforms and everything else. So that is a definitive thing on the Nolecast to do list. I can tell you.
Can we take an
So
intern? What are the labor laws in Georgia?
I don't know. I know they've changed drastically since I was an intern and working for free for a guy who probably has $1 billion in the bank.
Yeah.
So that's great. That'll make you feel good. But uh, yeah, I'm not. I was somewhat familiar with him at the time because my dad kept calling me and being like, "I'm pretty sure I can sue this guy." I'm like, "Dad, nobody's suing anybody. Relax." Uh, but
What are your damages there? Like,
yeah, yeah,
how old are you?
exactly.
17?
I haven't gotten my. It was during the economic collapse. I was 24 or whatever.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was 2008, 2009, whatever. So, and I figured if I was going to be working for free at a commercial real estate office, which I would have been, then I might as well just do it at a place I enjoy. And I went and worked for free at a sports talk radio station for 2.5 years, whatever
It was a good choice.
stupid amount of time was. Yeah, it
Maybe
paid
not
out.
working for free for 2.5 years.
It paid out on the back end. Trust me. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no doubt.
All right.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll get this episode up and appreciate all y'all listening. Give us that thumbs up if you watch us on YouTube. Make sure you hit you guys subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Give us that nice 5-star review if you've enjoyed the coverage this season. And we'll see y'all back again very soon with more episodes because we got transfer portal opening up, guys, on the 5th and probably announcements before that as well. So we'll see y'all then.